what we do here is go back.
Arsenal in the 2022-23 season were the biggest bottlers of all time. They were 8 points clear of 9 games to go, but still somehow failed to win the league. So let's take a look back at how they managed to bottle the league that season. At the end of the previous season, they actually bottled top 4. With 3 games to go, Arsenal were 4 points clear of Tottenham in 4th, but ended up losing 3-0 to their rivals and then 2-0 to Newcastle, finishing the season in 5th. It was looking bleak for Arsenal, but after a big summer there was some excitement for the new season. They brought in signings such as Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus, with the latter in particular shining in pre-season, scoring 7 goals in 5 games, including a beautiful chip and a 4-0 win over Chelsea. It had been a long time since Arsenal fans were this excited going into a new season. Their first game was away at Crystal Palace, where for the first time they used this beautiful pink kit. Gabriel Jesus had an absolute clinic in this game. He was playing like R9, Maradona, Pele and Lionel Messi all merged into one. He created this chance which Martinelli somehow missed, but Martinelli redeemed himself, scoring Arsenal's first goal of the season from this corner. And this kit even had Martinelli playing like a true Brazilian. I thought he was finally going to beat the Peruvian allegations when I saw him skinning defenders for fun. Ramsdale also pulled off some incredible saves in this game, and I have to highlight this unbelievable tackle by Saliba on his debut. Before later on, Saka caused his own goal to round off a wonderful 2-0 opening day win for Arsenal. Arsenal's first home game was against Leicester, where Gabriel Jesus was on top form again, producing this phantasmagorical chip to open the scoring, before a clinical back post header. In the second half, Saliba scored this calamity of an own goal, but Arsenal responded quickly as Jesus assisted Xhaka. Iheanacho and Maddison linked up for Leicester to get a second. However, Jesus got yet another assist, this time for Martinelli who got his second goal of the season. Arsenal were once again in the pink kit away at Bournemouth, where Jesus had another incredible performance, with this dribbling leading to Ødegaard's opener on a rebound from Martinelli's shot. Ødegaard then scored again through yet another Jesus assist, before Saliba wrapped up the win with a delectable goal on his weak foot, his first for the club. This unfortunately would be the last time Arsenal would use this sexy pink kit, but the memories will never fade. Next up was Fulham at home with Leno facing his former club, where in the second half, Mitrovic dispossessed Gabriel on the edge of the box to put Arsenal behind for the first time this season, and for the first time their character would be tested. And almost instantly they responded, as Saka picked up the ball, playing it into Ødegaard, who produced a nice step over to bring the scores back level. Then with 10 minutes to go, Gabriel made up for his error by tapping home from close range after Leno fumbled a corner to win the game for Arsenal. Arsenal got off to another fast start against Villa, creating countless chances early on, with Saka somehow failing to score from here. But they did eventually take the lead after Jesus capitalised on this disastrous mistake by Emi Martinez. Later on, Douglas Luiz somehow managed to squeeze it in from a corner, bringing Villa level with 15 minutes to go. However, it took the Gunners just a couple minutes to respond, as Saka cut it back for Martinelli to put Arsenal back into the lead and secure a 5th win in the road to start the season. But next was Arsenal's first big test. They'd started the season in immaculate form with 5 wins in a row, scoring 13 goals and scoring almost instantly after every goal they'd conceded. But now they had to go away to the Theatre of Dreams to face Manchester United, who were coming off the back of 3 wins in a row themselves, including a memorable 2-1 win over Liverpool. And to make matters worse, Arsenal were without their starting defensive midfielder, meaning Sambi Lokonga had to start. However, Saka played through Martinelli early on, who converted past De Gea, and Arsenal were looking truly unstoppable. Just for this goal to get ruled out for the softest foul I've seen in my damn life. And to top it off, Zinchenko decided to leave Ante in acres of space, allowing him to open the scoring on his debut, and then pull off this diabolical celebration. The game was far from over though, and in the second half, space opened up for Saka to level the scores and bring Arsenal back into the game with his first goal of the season. But then a darting run from Rashford in behind was met by a perfect pass from Bruno Fernandes, seeing United go back ahead. And as Arsenal sought to get back level again, United hit the Gunners on the counter-attack as Rashford got his second of the game and sealed the 3 points for the Red Devils, giving Arsenal their first loss of the season. However, Arsenal were still top of the league and looked to get back to winning ways away to Brentford. They went into an early lead as Saliba headed home from a corner before Xhaka crossed it in for Jesus to get back on the score sheet, a player who was truly setting the league alight in his new colours. And then in the second half, Fabio Vieira smacked in his first goal for the club to make it 3. In fact, Arsenal were so comfortable that they were able to bring on a 15-year-old. After 6 wins from 7, Arsenal now faced Tottenham in the North London derby, who were still unbeaten and only a point behind the Gunners under Antonio Conte. And they were also the team who crushed Arsenal's Champions League dreams just 4 months earlier. But once again, Arsenal started the game fast, with Thomas Partey scoring a rocket to open the scoring. This has got to be illegal, man. But before half-time, Gabriel took down Richarlison in the box for a penalty, which of course Harry Kane scored to equalise despite the Arsenal dominance. However, in the second half, Arsenal came speeding out the blocks as Saka's shot was deflected into the path of Gabriel Jesus, who scored and pulled out the iconic Thierry Henry celebration. This barbaric bozo Emerson then decided to stamp on Martinelli and get himself sent off, before Martinelli set up Granit Xhaka, who wrapped up the scoring and sealed a big win over Tottenham. Tottenham. Next up, Arsenal welcomed Liverpool to the Emirates, where Ødegaard played through Martinelli, who made it 1-0 inside the first minute. However, Gabriel misjudged this ball over the top, allowing Diaz to get in behind and set up Darwin Núñez to equalise. Before half-time, Martinelli hit Liverpool in the counter-attack and played it across for Saka to tap in at the back post, putting Arsenal 2-1 up. But in the second half, Firmino found himself in behind to bring Liverpool back level again, just for Thiago to take down Jesus in the box, allowing Saka to grab his second of the game and secure a massive win for Arsenal. This was truly a statement victory, only Arsenal's second win against Liverpool in 7 years, and showing that Arsenal could finally compete again against the biggest teams, and put Arsenal 14 points ahead of Liverpool in October. Hey yo, you absolute bozo! Why haven't you liked the video yet? Make sure to absolutely bukkake that like button and subscribe whilst you're at it. Thank you. Against Leeds, Ødegaard played through Saka, who hammered home with his weak foot to put Arsenal 1-0 up. In the second half, Saliba gave away a penalty for handball, but this bozo Patrick Bamford dragged his spot kick wide. And then in the 90th minute, Leeds thought they'd gotten another penalty, just flipped he overturned as Bamford fouled Gabriel first, meaning Arsenal picked up another 3 points. It was business as usual as White set up Xhaka to put Arsenal ahead against Southampton. However, in the second half, this bozo Ramsdale got distracted by a pigeon, allowing Armstrong to equalise. So Arsenal dropped points for just the second time that season. Martinelli headed Arsenal into the lead against Forest after a nice cross by Saka. However, Saka went on to get injured, meaning he had to be replaced by Reece Nelson, who went on to grab Arsenal's second on a rebound, scoring his first Premier League goal for 2 years. And then 2 minutes later tapped in a third for the Gunners, scoring again, before setting up Thomas Partey to hammer in a fourth. And finally, Ødegaard opened up the space for himself to slap in Arsenal's fifth to wrap up the scoring.
Arsenal, nothing personal.
Arsenal's star man for 4 years, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, had left the club in January that year for Barcelona. However, in the summer, he ended up at Arsenal's rivals Chelsea, meaning that he'd go on to face his former club when they were in red-hot form at Stamford Bridge. And in this game, Arsenal opened up Chelsea on countless occasions in a truly dominant performance, but were unable to open the scoring, until Saka's corner found its way all the way through to Gabriel, who tapped in on the line, and celebrated right in front of Aubameyang, as Arsenal picked up yet another 3 points. Fabio Vieira found himself in behind against Wolves and set up Ødegaard to tap in and open the scoring, and then Ødegaard touched down in the box and volleyed in a second, to wrap up the win for Arsenal and send them 5 points clear of Man City going into the break for the World Cup. However, at the World Cup, one of Arsenal's star players so far this season, Gabriel Jesus, picked up a knee injury that would keep him out for 4 months, meaning that Eddie Nketiah, who was yet to start a Premier League game that season, would come in to replace him. And Arsenal's first game after the World Cup break was at home against West Ham, where Arsene Wenger made his first appearance at the Emirates Stadium since leaving the club back in 2018. However, Wenger's homecoming didn't get off to a great start as Saliba took down Bowen in the box, allowing Ben Rama to open the scoring from the spot. But in the second half, the Gunners got back to business as Ødegaard's shot fell into the path of Bukayo Saka to equalise, before Xhaka played it into Martinelli, who took the ball in his weak foot and smacked it past Fabianski at the near post. And then to wrap it all up, Nketiah spun his man and hit it into the far corner for Arsenal's third, and Nketiah's first goal in his first game after replacing Gabriel Jesus. After 2 minutes, Martinelli's shot was deflected towards Saka, who tucked home an opener against Brighton. And then before half-time, Ødegaard volleyed in a bouncing ball from the edge of the box. In the second half, Martinelli came forward again, and this time had his shot deflected straight to Nketiah, who tapped home for yet another goal. Mitoma pulled back a consolation goal for Brighton, just for Ødegaard to play an inch-perfect pass from Martinelli to get in behind, and finally get his goal in a fourth for Arsenal. Somehow Saliba allowed Evan Ferguson to go through and grab another for Brighton, but it was too little too late as Arsenal ran out 4-2 winners. Despite creating a multitude of chances, Arsenal were unable to break down Newcastle, who so far had the best defence in the league, as they failed to score for the first time this season in a 0-0 draw. However, Man City lost to Manchester United in the Manchester derby after a late turnaround, meaning that Arsenal had the chance to go 8 points clear if they could beat their North London rivals Tottenham away from home, a game they hadn't won for 8 years. But this time around it was a different Arsenal, as Saka put in a cross parried into his own net by Hugo Lloris. Some truly bozo antics from Tottenham's captain. Thomas Partey then nearly scored one of the greatest goals in Premier League history, before Martin Ødegaard pinpoint perfectly hammered in a second for Arsenal from range. And this game was a perfect performance from Arsenal, not to mention the incredible display of Aaron Ramsdale making multiple big saves. And was so good he had this Tottenham fan so rattled that he tried to punch him, as Arteta had to break up his players from trying to fight the Tottenham players. Whilst Arsenal were taking the league by storm, Manchester United were also having their own silent revival, winning 9 of their last 10 games, and came to the Emirates with confidence, spearheaded by Marcus Rashford, who some were even giving Ballon d'Or shouts to. And Arsenal was shown why, as he nutmegged Thomas Partey before hammering in a screamer from 25 yards to put United ahead. However, Arsenal came back as Xhaka crossed in for Nketiah to head home an equaliser, once again proving himself an absolute absence of Gabriel Jesus. But in the second half, it was time for Arsenal superstar to stand up, as he teased Christian Eriksen before cutting in and curling an absolute banger into the far corner past De Gea and pulling out Rashford's celebration on his head top. The game wasn't sealed though, as Ramsdale failed to claim a corner which Martinez capitalised on to level the scores once more. And I can't lie, conceding a header to this legitimate dwarf is nothing short of embarrassing. Arsenal continued to come forward in the search of a winning goal, but going to the 90th minute the scores were still at 2-2. Just for Odegaard's shots to be diverted into Eddie Nketiah, who tapped in a memorable winner to sink United and send the Emirates into delirium. Arsenal are now 5 points clear of Manchester City with a game in hand going into February with 50 points from their first 19 games. Only 4 teams in Premier League history have ever managed a better start. And to add to that, Arsenal brought in Leandro Trossard from Brighton to bolster the attack and Jorginho from Chelsea for some experience. No one expected it before the season started, but it was looking like Arsenal could really do it. However, you can be doing as well as you like in the sports of football, but there are some things that are just inevitable. Everton Football Club were 19th in the league with just 3 wins all season, so they decided to turn to none other than Sean Dyche to save them. And his first game was Arsenal at Goodison Park, a stadium Arsenal had failed to win at for over 5 years. Nketiah went from scoring twice against Manchester United to playing like prime Yaya Sanogo, whilst Odegaard was in his Willian arc. Meanwhile, Tarkowski leaped highest from a corner to give Sean Dyche a famous 1-0 win in his first game as Everton manager. And the question was, were Arsenal about to collapse, or was this just a blip? In their next game, Arsenal were struggling to get into any kind of rhythm as Brentford were actually creating the better chances. So Arsenal decided to turn to their bench in their new signing, Leandro Trossard. And it took just 3 minutes for Saka to play it across the box for Arsenal's new Belgian to tap in his first goal for the club. However, just a few minutes later, Ivan Toney headed in an equaliser from close range. But there was just one thing about this goal. It was literally offside, and they didn't call it. Norgard was offside in the build-up, but the VAR missed it, causing Arsenal to drop 2 crucial points in the title race. And who was up next? Manchester City. This was the game everyone had been waiting for. The reigning champions against the unexpected challengers. This game was meant to be played in October, however got rescheduled to February, and it came at a bad time for Arsenal, who were in bad form and now without Thomas Partey, who was injured. Meanwhile, Manchester City were playing Bernardo Silva at left back, and with a win could go ahead of Arsenal on goal difference. Arsenal could not afford to lose, and definitely couldn't afford any stupid errors. So what did they do? Play it straight to the best midfielder in Premier League history, who looped over Ramsdale to put City in the lead. There is truly no duo more iconic than Arsenal in creating their own problems. However, before half-time, Eddie Nketiah found himself in behind and was taken down by Ederson for a penalty, which Bukayo Saka stood up to take for the Gunners to get them back into the game. And with pure composure, he scored it to get Arsenal back level. It was the man for the big occasions to fill the Emirates with hope once again. But it didn't last, as Gabriel decided to play it straight to Bernardo Silva, and City capitalised as Gundogan played it across for Grealish to put City back into the lead. It didn't help that this bozo Nketiah kept missing easy chances, and the difference between the strikers proved costly, as Haaland was clinical when he got his chance, making it 3-1 to City, and putting the visitors back top of the league for the first time since August. Arsenal had lost, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. They were still level on points with Man City with a game in hand. And to make it even better, Man City dropped points away to Nottingham Forest, meaning Arsenal could go 2 points clear of a game in hand if they won their next game against Unai Emery's Aston Villa. But it took just 5 minutes for Ollie Watkins to break free and put Villa in the lead. Arsenal got back into the game as Ming's clearance went straight to Saka, who volleyed in a bullet to make it 1-1. But Villa found themselves ahead once again as Coutinho converted this chance past Ramsdale. In the second half, Zinchenko hit one in from the edge of the box for his first Arsenal goal, making it 2-2. Going into stoppage time, Arsenal was still level in need of a winner, when Martinelli pulled it back for Jorginho, who hit it first time off the bar onto Emi Martinez in the 93rd minute, sending the away fans absolutely wild. And then in the final minute, Martinez came up for a corner, cleared by Arsenal, leaving an open goal for Martinelli to walk in a 4th for Arsenal and a crucial 3 points in the title race. Away at Leicester, it was Martinelli again on the score sheet in a 1-0 win, and then Arsenal were looking for revenge on Everton at the Emirates, with Saka smacking in an opener at the near post with his weak foot, before winning it off Gay to set up Martinelli for a second goal. Trossard then got in behind and laid it back for Odegaard to make it 3, and finally Nketiah squared it for Martinelli to get a second goal and secure a 4-0 win for Arsenal, who are now well and truly back in form, going 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League. Next was a seemingly routine game at home against 19th place Bournemouth, but they got off to the worst possible start as Billing put the visitors ahead in under 10 seconds. And then in the second half, Senesi headed in from a corner to put Bournemouth into a shock 2-0 lead. After dominating the league all year, Arsenal was throwing it all away at home to Bournemouth, and it would take a monstrous effort to recover this result. 5 minutes later, Smith Rowe set up Thomas Partey to pull one back for the Gunners, and then with 20 minutes to go, Reece Nelson played it across the box with Ben White to get Arsenal level with his first goal for the club. However, going into the 97th minute, Arsenal were still level, desperately looking for a winning goal, just for them to win a corner, their last chance of the game, which was cleared to the edge of the box, touched down by Reece Nelson, who let fly with his left foot. and the ball nestled orgasmically into the far corner to win Arsenal the game with the last kick. It was a goal that Arsenal fans will never forget and looked to be the moment that would propel them on to finally win the Premier League. This team just did not know when to lie down, and this was the moment that topped them all. Who was going to stop Arsenal now? In their next game, Gabriel headed them in front against Fulham, and then Trossard chipped it in for Martinelli to head in a second goal, before Trossard completed a hat-trick of assists, this time for Odegaard to find space and complete a dominant 3-0 win for Arsenal. Arsenal then faced Sporting in the Europa League, a game they went on to lose on penalties, after a Sporting wonder goal sent the game to extra time. The result didn't really matter as Arsenal were more focused on their Premier League title race, but what really hurt Arsenal was the loss of William Saliba through injury, something that would go on to haunt Arsenal for the rest of the season. Rob Holding came in for Saliba against Crystal Palace, but it didn't matter, as Martinelli continued his impeccable form to smash Arsenal into a first half lead, which was doubled just before half time by Bukayo Saka with a composed finish. Trossard and Xhaka linked up to make it 3 in the second half, before Jeffrey Schlupp pulled back a consolation goal for Palace. However, Arsenal weren't finished as Saka whipped in a fourth for Arsenal to complete the scoring. Gabriel Jesus made his first start since November against Leeds after his long-term injury, and was back to causing mayhem, winning a first half penalty through his trickery, which he confidently scored to put Arsenal ahead. Martinelli then whipped it in for Ben White to convert from close range, before Trossard beautifully set up Gabriel Jesus for his second of the game, and Trossard's 7th assist in just 7 starts for the club. Christensen got 1 goal back for Leeds, but just as against Palace, Arsenal went on to make it 4 through Xhaka, going 8 points clear with 9 games to go. The football was sensational, the link-up was tantalising, and it didn't look like anyone could stop Arsenal from steamrolling to their first league title in 19 years. And their next test was a visit to Anfield. If they could win this game, there would be no more doubts that this Arsenal team would go on to win the Premier League title, especially considering they hadn't won at Anfield for 11 years. And once again, Arsenal got off to the perfect start as Martinelli broke in between Van Dijk and Trent to sneak home an opening goal for the Gunners. I don't know what this bozo at the back was doing, but Arsenal didn't care because they were 1-0 up at Anfield, and it was about to get a whole lot better as Martinelli crossed it in for Jesus, who rose on Easter Sunday to put Arsenal into an unfathomable 2-0 lead away to Liverpool. This was the game where Arsenal's players could write themselves into the history books. Surely nothing could go wrong now. But Arsenal forgot one thing. This wasn't just any stadium. This was Anfield. Arsenal had silenced the fans by going to a 2-goal lead, but the one thing they could not afford was to wake the crowd up, which Granit Xhaka did with this altercation with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And lo and behold, Liverpool began to play with energy, as Jota's cross ended up at the feet of Mohamed Salah at the back post. It was 2-1 and game on. Then in the second half, this diabolical bozo Rob Holding decided to take Jota down in the box to give away a penalty. All that hard work was being unravelled by this barbaric mongoose, as Salah stepped up to plunge the dagger into Arsenal hearts. Klopp couldn't watch, but he still knew that Salah scored. Oh wait, he didn't score. He dragged his penalty wide. A lifeline for Arsenal. But then Zinchenko channeled his inner Bonnie Blue, leaving his legs wide open, which Trent took full advantage of before chipping it into Roberto Firmino, who crushed Arsenal's hopes and dreams. They'd bottled a 2-goal lead in the game that could have all but won them the league. Liverpool continued to look for a winner, which they would have gotten if not for some Ramsdale heroics. But in the final minute, Arsenal had one last chance on the counter-attack. A 3-on-1, and all Martinelli needed to do was play the right pass. And this Peruvian donkey completely messed it up, causing us to drop crucial points in the title race. This could have been the moment for us to change history, and he fumbled it. However, the title was still in Arsenal's hands, as they were 6 points clear when they went away to West Ham, where once again they sped into an early lead through some beautiful link-up finished off by Gabriel Jesus, before Martinelli whipped in for Odegaard to volley in a second. And once more, Arsenal found themselves in a 2-0 lead away from home. Before half-time, this criminal Thomas Partey got dispossessed on the edge of his box, leading to a penalty, which Ben Rama scores get West Ham back into the game. However, in the second half, Arsenal won a penalty of their own, which Saka stepped up to take and restore Arsenal's 2-goal lead. But he flipping missed it when we needed it most. How would you even miss it by that much? And then literally a minute later, Bowen hit a volley which Ramsdale flapped at and let in, meaning West Ham had equalised. And for the second week in a row, Arsenal bottled a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2 away from home, seeing their lead at the top of the league slip from 8 points to 4 points, whilst Man City had a game in hand. However, it was still in Arsenal's hands to win the league, and next up was 20th place Southampton at home. The perfect game to get back to winning ways after a blip. All they needed was a good start to settle the nerves. So what did Ramsdale do? Pass it straight to Southampton and had 20 seconds to go 1-0 down. Seriously, what kind of nefarious level of ineptitude is required to be this flippin' stupid? Odegaard then passed it right to Southampton, who hit us on the counter-attack, with Walcott getting in behind to make it 2-0 inside 14 minutes. But to be fair, if you go 2-0 down, you can't bottle a 2-0 lead, so I guess I get the logic. And if that wasn't embarrassing enough, Zinchenko decided to call a huddle in the middle of the pitch. These players had completely lost their heads, it was insane. However, a few minutes later, Saka cut it back from Martinelli and the comeback was well and truly on. Just for Kaleta to head one in at the back post in the second half to make it 3-1 to Southampton. I thought bottling back-to-back 2-goal leads was bad, but throwing the Premier League title away at home to bottom of the league might be the worst thing this football club has ever done. We went on to get a second goal in the 88th minute, but it looked like it would just be a consolation. But then in the final minute we came for it again and Bukayo Saka scored in the rebound, meaning that in stoppage time it was all to play for. After being 3-1 down with 2 minutes to go, we had the chance to pull off the greatest comeback in Premier League history and put ourselves back in the driving seat for the Premier League title. Trossard came close, Nelson came close, but it was still 3-3 as we came forward for the final time. And then this boneheaded bozo Thomas Partey decided to shoot from 40 yards out and the chance was gone. This man has 5 charges against his name, but this is the most preposterous thing he has ever done. I hope the justice system finishes off this bona fide scrub for all the trauma he's caused. And that was it. It was all over. 3-3 at home to the worst team in the league. Arsenal were still 5 points clear at the top of the league, but Man City had 2 games in hand. However, there was one last hope. Arsenal's next game was away at the Etihad. If they could just win this game, the league was still in their hands. It all came down to this. One last chance to salvage everything.
But I'm here to say to you that it's not over yet. We can beat Manchester City and we can still win this title. Believe.
And inside just 7 minutes, De Bruyne scored and it was 1-0 Man City. Honestly, I don't know why anyone had any hope whatsoever going into this game. We went away to the back-to-back title winners with Rob Holding at the back, and Haaland bullied him in this game like something I've never seen before. This twink suffered all kinds of non-consensual atrocities in this game, it was wild. Before half-time, John Stones headed in a second for City, and then after half-time, Ødegaard played it straight to De Bruyne, who went through to make it 3-0. This was genuinely the humbling of humblings. And I thought it couldn't get any worse when we went 3-0 down, but then we came forward and got a consolation goal. And I promise you, I would have rather seen us lose 7-0 than this bozo be the guy who scores for us. It was like rubbing salt into circumcision wounds, man. It was peak. And then he had the audacity to wink whilst wearing the captain's armband as well. I'm actually gonna vomit. And then in the final minute, Haaland went through to make it 4-1 with Holding once again looking like a spasmoid. And if I say anything else about this game, I think I'm gonna start using slurs, so I'm just gonna leave it there. So the title was pretty much gone. We were still top of the league, but City had 2 games in hand which they were obviously going to win. And our next game was against 11th place Chelsea. And we'd been bad, but not quite bad enough to drop points to this egregious mess of a team. Ødegaard scored twice and Gabriel Jesus got on the score sheet to make it 3-0 before half time. In the second half, Madueke pulled one back for Chelsea. And after just commentating on us botting the league, the last thing I want to see on my screen right now is this guy. Because why are we signing another Chelsea player? In our next game we played Newcastle, where once again Ødegaard scored a beautiful goal from the edge of the box. And then later on Martinelli caused an own goal to wrap up a 2-0 win. But it meant absolutely nothing, as Man City got 1 point clear at the top of the league with a game in hand. We then faced Brighton, who had just lost 5-1 at home to Everton, so we decided to go 1-0 down to them at the Emirates. And then Trossard assisted his former club going 2-0 up, as Ramsdale pulled off this monstrosity. And then Estepinian scored a third, meaning we lost 3-0 at home to flipping Brighton. Honestly, it was just getting embarrassing at this point. We then faced Forest, where we had to win or the title was officially gone. And for the 3rd time, Ødegaard played it straight to the opposition, who went up the other end and scored to make it 1-0. Of course we weren't able to score, and Manchester City were champions. We had gone from being 8 points clear of 9 games to go, to 8 points behind with 1 game to go. This truly was the most embarrassing bottle job of all time. In our final game, we decided to turn up when it didn't matter, scoring 5 past Wolves, where Xhaka scored 2 goals in his final game, Saka scored a beauty, Jesus headed in a 4th, and Kivior got his first goal for the club. It was a season that far exceeded expectations. Most people didn't even expect Arsenal to get top 4, but ultimately it ended in disappointment. A season that looked so promising ended up with Arsenal producing the most catastrophic, outrageous, preposterous bottle job the Premier League has ever seen. And to this very day, it gives me nightmares. Because to this very day, we still continue to fail to win anything. And if we can't change that this season, I might just end it all. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and follow me on TikTok. I've started posting on there again and I'm trying to get to 10k as soon as possible so I can start making new content. In a bit, G.